What if I told you a man discovered a hole so deep that it defied science and possibly reality itself? Mel Waters claimed to have found an endless pit in the wilderness of Washington state, a black void that swallowed everything. Locals whispered of impossible events, animals resurrected, eerie forces at play, and shadowy government interference. But here's the strangest part. No one can find it today. Mel Waters first came forward in the late 1990s on the Coast to Coast AM radio show, a program known for exploring the strange and unexplained. His voice carried a quiet certainty as he spoke of something beyond comprehension, something hidden in the hills near Ellensburg, Washington. He claimed that on his own land, tucked away from prying eyes, there was a hole unlike any other. It had been there long before he arrived. Locals spoke of it being bottomless, a place that devoured anything thrown into its gaping maw. For years, people used it as a dumping ground, tossing in broken appliances, old tires, and even the bodies of livestock. No matter how much was thrown in, the hole never filled. More disturbingly, nothing ever made a sound as it fell. There was no echo, no impact, only an eternal descent into darkness. Curiosity became obsession. Mel conducted his own experiments, lowering fishing line and weighted objects, hoping to reach the bottom. He fed out hundreds, then thousands of feet of line, but the spool never ran out. The deeper it went, the more uneasy he became, as if something unseen stirred in the depths. Locals swore by strange happenings around the hole. Animals refused to go near it, even the most stubborn of mules digging their hooves into the dirt in panic. Birds never perched on its edge. Some whispered that the land around it felt different, as if reality itself warped near the abyss. Mel knew he had found something unnatural, something ancient, and soon it would become clear that he was not the only one paying attention. Mel's fascination with the hole soon turned into an obsession. He needed to know how deep it truly was. Armed with a sturdy fishing rod and a spool of high tensile line, he devised an experiment. He tied a heavy weight to the end and began lowering it inch by inch, watching as the line disappeared into the dark void. At first, he expected to hit bottom within a reasonable distance, but the spool kept unwinding. Thousands of feet vanished into the abyss, then tens of thousands. He marked his progress carefully, measuring each descent. When he reached 80,000 feet over 15 miles, he realized something was terribly wrong. No natural hole should extend so deep without reaching molten rock or collapsing under the Earth's immense pressure. Yet his line swayed freely, untouched by resistance, as if the void stretched endlessly into nothingness. Mel called out into the darkness, listening for an echo, but none came. His voice was swallowed by an unnatural silence, as if the hole refused to acknowledge sound. It was not just deep, it was something else entirely. Even the animals sensed its wrongness. His dogs, usually fearless, refused to approach. Their hackles rose whenever he ventured too close. One of them let out a low growl, backing away with wide, panicked eyes. Birds never circled overhead. No insects buzzed near the rim. It was as if nature itself recoiled from whatever lurked in its depths. The implications gnawed at him. A hole like this should not exist. It defied geology, logic, and reason. But it was there, an impossible wound in the earth stretching into unseen horrors below. The hole's impossible depth was disturbing enough, but it was the strange phenomena surrounding it that made Mel realize he had stumbled upon something far beyond human understanding. Whispers of unnatural occurrences had always lingered around the pit, but one story in particular stood out, a story that sent a chill through even the most skeptical locals. A man from the area, desperate to be rid of the grief weighing on him, had taken the lifeless body of his beloved dog to the hole. The animal had not been alive for some time, its body stiff with rigor, but the man decided to give it what he believed to be a final resting place. Without ceremony, he cast the corpse into the abyss and watched as it disappeared into the blackness. No sound followed. No thud, no impact, just silence. Days later, something unthinkable happened. The man was out walking near his home when he saw a dog. At first, he thought nothing of it, just another stray wandering through the area. but as it got closer, his breath caught in his throat. The markings, the eyes, the familiar way it moved. This was his dog. It should have been impossible, yet there it was, standing before him, its gaze locked onto his. But something was wrong. The dog did not respond to his voice the way it once had. Its eyes, though familiar, carried an unsettling intelligence, as if it recognized him but did not truly belong to this world anymore. It never barked, never whimpered. It only watched. Eventually it turned and walked away, fading into the trees. The man never saw it again. It was not just the dog. Other things thrown into the hole failed to behave as expected. A chunk of ice, dropped in as an experiment, was later retrieved by someone using a long hook. When they touched it, it did not melt. Instead, it burned their skin, leaving angry red welts as if it had been superheated. A rusted metal tool, tossed in for good measure, was later found outside the hole, but something had changed. Its surface shimmered strangely, as if the very structure of the metal had been altered. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was this a portal, a tear in the fabric of reality? Some speculated that the hole led to another dimension, a place where death and physics did not function as they did here. Others feared something even darker. What if the hole was not naturally occurring? What if it was the remnants of an ancient technology, something left behind by a forgotten civilization that had long since disappeared? There were those who believed the government knew exactly what it was, that it had been studied, hidden, and perhaps even used. The more Mel tried to make sense of what he had found, the more he realized that understanding it might not be possible. The hole did not just defy science, it defied reality itself, and whatever it was not meant to be discovered. Mel Waters thought he had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something the world needed to know about. But the moment he shared his story on Coast to Coast AM, everything changed. The government, it seemed, had been listening. Not long after his appearance on the show, men arrived at his property. They were not local authorities. They carried themselves with the quiet authority of those who did not need to explain their presence. Without warning, they told him he had to leave. His land was no longer his. No official documents were shown, no legal processes followed. It was not a request, it was a command. Mel resisted at first, demanding answers, but the men made it clear that this was not up for debate. He was escorted away, not even given the chance to gather his belongings. When he tried to return, he found the entire area sealed off. Armed personnel patrolled the perimeter. The hole, the land, everything gone from his reach. Then something even stranger happened. He checked old records, searching for proof that the land had ever belonged to him. Deeds, ownership papers, even maps, every trace of his connection to the property had vanished. It was as if he had never lived there at all. When he looked up satellite images of the area, he found nothing. Where his property should have been, there was only a nondescript blur, as if the land itself had been erased. Mel was not just pushed off his land, he was erased from it. Soon after, he received an offer, though it was more of an ultimatum. A significant sum of money was placed in his hands. A warning followed. Stop talking about the hole. Disappear. If he valued his safety, he would take the deal and forget everything. He tried to resist. He tried to fight back. But with every attempt to expose the truth, the pressure increased. People watched him, followed him. Shadows moved where they should not have been. Eventually, he did what they wanted. He went silent. But some secrets refused to stay buried. The question remains, why would the government go to such lengths to hide a simple hole in the ground? And more importantly, what did they find when they looked inside? Many dismissed Mel's story as nothing more than a fabrication, a hoax meant to stir up controversy. Geologists scoffed at the idea of a hole stretching miles into the earth without structural collapse. Scientists argued that such a formation was impossible, that the very laws of nature would prevent something like this from existing. Yet for every skeptic, there were locals who swore the hole was real. They had seen it with their own eyes, had grown up hearing stories about it, had watched it swallow everything thrown into its depths without a sound. Some claimed the hole mirrored ancient legends, tales of bottomless pits scattered throughout mythology. Across different cultures, there were stories of gateways hidden deep within the earth, portals leading to places not meant for the living. Some believed these chasms led straight to the underworld, places where spirits lingered, where the rules of reality no longer applied. Was Mel's Hole one of these fabled gateways? Others suspected something even more sinister. What if this was never a natural phenomenon at all? Some whispered that the hole had been part of a long-buried government experiment, a hidden testing site for advanced technology, or even something far worse. If the government had sealed it off so aggressively, it meant they had found something they did not want anyone else to know about. Then another rumor emerged. Mel's Hole, it seemed, was not unique. Another pit, one just as mysterious, just as impossible, was said to exist in the remote deserts of Nevada. The stories surrounding it bore an eerie resemblance to Mel's own account. A hole so deep it seemed endless, a place where strange occurrences defied explanation, a location that had also been wiped from official records, its very existence denied. Could there be more? Could these bottomless pits be scattered across the country, hidden in forgotten landscapes, waiting to be discovered? And if so, what purpose did they serve? Were they remnants of an ancient civilization, long since buried and forgotten? Were they unnatural scars in the earth, evidence of forces beyond human comprehension? Or were they never meant to be found at all? If Mel's Hole was nothing more than a fabrication, a bizarre tale spun out of thin air, then why did the government take such an interest? Why did they erase its existence, remove satellite images, and force Mel off his own land? Hoaxes do not warrant that kind of response. Something was there, something they did not want the world to see. And if the hole truly had no bottom, what else could be hiding within its depths? What if something had been buried there long before anyone stumbled upon it? Something ancient, something unnatural. Mel's experiments proved that nothing dropped inside ever seemed to reach the end. But what if something was waiting far below, something that was never meant to be disturbed? Maybe the hole still exists, hidden away from prying eyes, sealed beneath layers of secrecy. Or maybe it was never just one hole. Maybe others are out there, concealed in forgotten landscapes, waiting to be found. What do you think? Was Mel's Hole a real and terrifying anomaly? Or was it just an elaborate urban legend? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but remember, some mysteries are best left unsolved.